the war on Iraq on an unwilling world in violation of the UN Charter and international law. What those traitors have done is illegal, immoral, unconstitutional, and treason. I am told that somewhere in Texas there's a village looking for its idiot. Now that might be funny, but it misses the point. George W. Bush is not an imbecile, he's a traitor. And the same goes for his poodle, that vain, self-serving little hypocrite, Tony Blair. Before the war started, we knew it would divide NATO, fracture the United Nations, separate us from our friends in old Europe, across Asia and the Middle East. Ordinary American and British citizens and other allies of this ghastly coalition have become targets of hate. Mercifully, New Zealand was not foolish enough to get involved in this military adventure of America's in Iraq. And again, I salute your political leadership for doing that. It's not often we praise the politicians, it's not often they get things right. But their decision has put New Zealand on a platform it is admired internationally for making this stand. Although, as I said yesterday, the only other government to make a similar stand against America was the Taliban, so beware. I just hope you haven't got oil in New Zealand. The Arab world is incensed. The Muslims are devastated. Well, everyone apart from one Mr. Osama bin Laden. He's never been more popular. He must be laughing his socks off now wherever he is. But the Americans can't find him. 6'4" tall, rides a white horse, carries a kidney dialysis machine around with him. But he still remains elusive. And the interesting thing is, I was asked the other day what I thought of Osama bin Laden. Loved or loathed, the man cannot be ignored. And he is a man of many, many words, but he is also a man of his word, and with chilling accuracy as well. But none of his reasons for waging war on the US have anything to do with freedoms, with liberties and democracy, as George Bush and Tony Blair like to claim. But they have everything to do with US policies and actions in the Muslim world. Notably, the unlimited support for Israel's repression of the Palestinians and the destruction of Iraq. Tony Blair was challenged the other day because he's in denial. He refuses to accept that the London bombings have anything to do with Iraq. And he said, look at 9/11. That happened before Afghanistan, before Iraq. Yes, Mr. Blair, it might have. But the roots of 9/11 are wrapped deeply around Palestine and the injustice of the Palestinian people. And until there is justice for everyone, there will never be any peace. There are thousands of young men eager to become Al-Qaeda recruits and wreak terror on you and me. Well, not you, but me. I live in Britain. You're okay. The cabal of neoconservatives who planned the never-ending war on terror, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, Libby Pearl, Jeb Bush, even before George W. Bush became president, knew the American people would not stomach a never-ending war unless there was a new Pearl Harbor. 9/11 supplied that. 9/11, I said before, came as no surprise to me. And it certainly came as no surprise to the Bush administration. The government was warned so many times that something awful, something huge and catastrophic was in the offing. They were warned by the outgoing Clinton administration. They were warned by senior intelligence operatives from 11 different countries, and they were specifically warned by an FBI agent that one of them was planning on flying a hijacked airliner into the World Trade Center. This has all come out in the 9/11 enquiries. They not only ignored the warnings, they made sure that day that no fighter jets were scrambled to stop it. If they had just done nothing and allowed normal procedures to unfold, the Twin Towers would still be standing and thousands of dead Americans and other nationalities would still be alive. This is not the actions of a peaceful nation. Peaceful nations don't kill Arabs for oil, persecute, abuse, or torture Muslims, or destroy their own people's civil liberties and freedoms. Iraq is not a one-off. It is part of a long, bloody history of foreign policy being conducted for the financial benefit of the wealthy few. It is a new colonialism. Ordinary American citizens and the media need to wake up and smell the coffee. It's time for Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, and the whole oil mafia to be removed from office and indicted for treason. Inshallah. I mentioned Nelson Mandela earlier, a revered statesman. Now, the new legislation that Tony Blair wants to introduce is to stop incitement to what he calls terrorism. That means I would probably be locked up if I had praised Nelson Mandela 10, 15 years ago. I would have been accused of incitement. And when I talk about Palestine and the heroic Palestinian resistance, I've got no doubt that Blair and his cronies might try and use this new legislation against me. Well, we'll see what happens, because I am not going to remain silent over Palestine. I was one of the first journalists into Jenin, into the refugee camp, after the siege had been lifted, when 53 Palestinians, women and children, had been butchered, slaughtered by the Israeli army. I saw with my own eyes the injustice that is happening out there, day in, day out. But going back to Nelson Mandela, once called a terrorist by Margaret Thatcher, now the former South African president and Nobel Peace winner, he said last year, "Why does the United States behave so arrogantly? Their friend Israel has got weapons of mass destruction, but because it's their ally, they won't ask the United Nations to get rid of them. They just want the oil. We must expose this as much as possible," said Nelson Mandela. He went on to describe Tony Blair as a US foreign minister. I once called him the 51st governor of the United States, but I think that title has gone to President Pervez Musharraf. But he saved his most scathing words for Bush when he called him a president who can't think properly and wants to plunge the world into a Holocaust. Do you think Holocaust was too strong a word? Let me refer you back to John Stockwell, a former CIA station chief and author of In Search of Enemies. According to his estimation, the United States is responsible for the deaths of